Hola chicas, how's it going? It's Carrie here. So I was doing my normal drop off at school routine. I come back, make myself a cup of tea, grab a glass of water whilst I'm making my cup of tea, and I pick up a book. Usually like that first kind of 20 minutes, half an hour after school drop off is my little bit of time where I get to just like immerse myself in the things that I really love doing. So I'll have a bit of a stretch, or I'll have a bit of dance round, or I'll do some growth work, or I'll pick up a book. And inspired by the amazing Jen Storer, who's an Australian writer. She writes amazing kids books, and I happened to see on her website she was talking about this book, The Artist's Way, and I was like, I love that book. I've not picked up that book in ages, so I thought, yeah, let's have a moment with this book. Have a moment with Julia Cameron. So I put on the kettle and I go off and find it. And one of my favourite games to play with books is to just flip them open. And I flipped it open twice. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I did. And there are some really great quotes in this book. The whole thing is about discovering and recovering your creative self and why that's important. And it gives loads of amazing advice about getting over all those excuses. You know, like I'm no good, or I'm too old, or people wouldn't be interested. It's a brilliant book. And so I flipped it open, and there were two quotes on the first page. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong, which is a quote from Joseph Chilton Pearce. Which I was like, yeah, that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's like, it's about failing forwards. It's about actually creating for the love of creating, rather than thinking, what are people going to think, and who's going to like it, and, you know, like, oh God, I'm just doing this all wrong. I'm always doing it wrong. And it's not. It's about, fuck it, I love making stuff, and I love exploring the inside of my head, and I'm curious about what my hands can create. And that's the important bit. It's not about people's reception or perception of the thing that you create. And then the second quote was, when you are feeling depreciated, angry, or drained, it is a sign that other people are not open to your energy, which is a quote from my brain's just gone blank. Sanaya Roman. Sorry if I'm mangling these names today. And I think that's a really interesting thing in itself, because I think that connection is like a circle of energy, and I think that there are barriers that we can put up against that connection. We can go at things with a fear. Again, it's to do with that wrongness. It's the fear that we're doing it wrong, and because we feel that we're doing it wrong, then we're going to stay closed. We're going to stay defensive about the work that we create. And that's not just as a creative making art, that's as a therapist and the work that we give as massage therapists and body workers. It's about ourselves as humans, isn't it? That if we feel that people aren't going to receive or understand our work, and therefore receive and understand us, we put up this barrier, which means that we're not feeding that loop of good energy, which means that we're depleting ourselves. We are allowing ourselves to feel less than, because we perceive ourselves to be less than. And then the third quote, which was like, all over this at the moment, is from Shakti Gawain. And what this quote says is, what I'm actually saying is that we need to be willing to let our intuition guide us, and then be willing to follow that guidance directly and fearlessly. This just seems to be like a recurring message at the moment, and it ties in so well with what I'm hoping to be teaching you, hoping you are receiving through my course, Letters from Your Future Badass Self. And it's this idea, it's such an idea. It's this idea that when we get that hit, when we get that urge, when we get that instinct, when we get that intuition to create something or to make a decision or to do the thing, whatever the thing is, that we really got to follow that urge. And I think that too many of us, we fucking wait around for somebody else to tell us to do it. Like, we can feel it within ourselves, but we don't trust that urge. We don't trust that instinct. We feel that because we are so closed off to the energy of others, we're not willing to trust our own self. We're not trusting our gut. And yet, because we are so closed off to the energy of others, it inhibits us from taking that step and making that move. And I just feel that so many of us, me included in the past, and we'll probably come back in layers to it again, so many of us are just timid because we're so scared of what that possibility holds. We're so scared of what that intuition may bring, that there is the possibility of creating something which is so freaking amazing, of creating something which is so bright and wonderful and bigger than anything else we've ever created or ever written or ever done, that we just hold back because actually it's really freaking scary, that thought of being seen, that thought of being seen for the work that we really put our heart into and put our gut into. And so we get that intuitive hit, we go, oh man, that would be so good. But instead of following it through, we bit and bat and we bod onto the next project or the next possibility or the next idea. We never allow ourselves to invest 100% heart, gut, soul, body, time, space, all of the energies. We never invest all of that. And so we just end up in this place where we're like, depleted and withdrawn and just feeling empty. And a lot of that is to do with following our very intuitive nature. Yeah, so yeah, more thoughts than I was expecting to have, but really creativity is such a gift. And when it comes to us, I feel that we should really be seizing the opportunities that it presents us, because there is so much for us to gain from following those skills, like so much. There's so much internal value that you give yourself when you commit to doing a thing. I'm sure that there's that a chemistry within the brain as well, that when you create, you're using more of your brain, you're making more synaptic pathways when you're enjoying it and you're in love with the work and it feels like play. It's that neuroplasticity, isn't it? It's a synaptogenesis. And so investing our time in our intuition, investing our time in our love and our craft for the pleasure it gives us rather than the validation we get externally, it's just the most freeing thing. And it just creates all this amazingness, all this freshness within your brain and within your body. And that should really be enjoyed. So those thoughts, couple of tangents. I'd love to know what you think about what we've been talking about here, about what I've been rattling on about. I'd love to hear. Let's have a conversation. Take care, and I'll see you next time.